This is the Rounding Third podcast. Welcome back to the show. We got Brian Ogden here, glorious co-host here to my left, and today's special guest, the pride of New Orleans, Louisiana, or close enough to New Orleans, Louisiana. Kind of a big deal down in New Orleans this week rolling up, right? We got Fat Tuesday, we got Mardi Gras holidays coming up, special times down there, especially down in the French Quarter. But the pride of John Curtis High School right here. Sierra Sacco, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Good to have you back. You know, you had a pretty special person DM you the other day after our game talking about the gritty, right? So
He did.
Kind of what was kind of the message there with the gritty and kind of how did that all transpire?
Well, he reposted my little highlight thing that David made onto his story and was like, "Oh, this is fire, da da da." And then he's like, "Oh, when can I come down there?" And that's when I hit you up, and I was like, "You just let me know." You
know, if we could let him teach us how to gritty, we could teach him how to Dougie. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
A little trade-off.
Yeah, a little this for that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
you got to share who it is though for those back home that didn't get to see your DM. So who you got?
It's La Gritty,
All right.
LAH Gritty.
There you go.
He's like the founder of the Gritty. So
a lot of folks think of like Justin Jefferson with the Vikings. Right. No. La Gritty got it going. He was the originator of the Gritty. So that'd be pretty special. We can get out here and teach us how to gritty. That'd be pretty cool.
I don't know. I mean, Sierra seems to have it pretty well down. That's been your kind of standard home run celebration for the last 2 years, hasn't it?
It has. I don't know where it came from, honestly. Like my first career home run versus Arkansas, it just kind of happened. So I've been sticking with that ever since then. So.
And, you mentioned that was your first career home run last year, but the power numbers haven't really gone away. We got 2 this weekend out of you. One of them was a grand slam, first grand slam you've had. So just kind of talk to us a little bit about where the power's coming from.
Well, I've been working really hard like this summer and then this fall just on standing in because I was a slapper previously. So I really wanted to, produce more RBIs, get more doubles, like produce more for my team rather than just trying to beat out an infield single every other at bat. So me focusing on standing in is really helping my game in that aspect.
Yeah, and then we've seen it pay off. You mentioned the doubles and the RBIs. Leads the team in doubles, 25th in the nation. And second on the team in RBIs, you're only one off of Lexi Sosa's lead, and she's been doing it with the long ball herself here lately. So, you're seeing the results of that, and we got to see a lot of that this weekend. We mentioned the Louisiana Tech game. We can just jump right in and start there. Very first pitch you saw left the yard, come back up a second time, and another one. I think, what was it, a 3-1 count, 3-2 count, kind of fought your way back into that and then hit it out. You had a good comment post-game about kind of what you were looking for in that longer at-bat. Kind of walk us through the mindset leading into that grand slam.
Well, I knew the bases were loaded, so I just want to hit something hard and low to try to get it past the infielders to where I don't, fly out or anything. And then I got to 3-2 by taking, I think it was 2 balls in a row because she just walked Morgan Stiles ahead of me. So I was like, okay, let me make her throw me one. So then I got to 2-1, and then another ball, 3-1, and then I got to a 3-2 count. So I'm thinking, okay, just hard and low, just get something past the infield, get it to the outfield, score 2 runs. And then it just ended up going out. So that's always nice when that happens.
Yeah, you mentioned Morgan Stiles, who's really put together a lot of quality at-bats. I may not show it as much in the batting average category, but that's a huge base on balls with a base loaded, gets the RBI there, and then all of a sudden the pitcher, when she gets behind 3-1, they're like, well, I don't want to walk another one.
Right.
So really kind of put some pressure on the defense there. You got one you can handle. You do what we like to do with 3-1 counts. We call those damage counts. You got off a swing to do damage, and that's exactly what happened with the grand slam. So that was kind of essentially the knockout punch, if you will. We talk about that a lot with the big innings. Those that have listened into the show before, we hit on that quite a bit. But a big inning right there, and it's one of those where Raylan was cruising. I mean, she really had her stuff going. Jesse picked off another runner that game. I think that was in the first inning to kind of shut down a potential threat because Louisiana Tech has definitely had some big wins earlier this year. They went down to Mexico, beat Oklahoma State weekend 1, played some close games with Florida State and some others. Beat Auburn the night before they played us, another nationally ranked team. So a team that's more than capable, and we were able to kind of put out some small fires early on, pick some runners off. Callie had a heads-up play at shortstop to kind of negate a runner going to third. So there's a lot of things working defensively early on that kind of rolled in offensively, and when you getting the big solo shot there on the first pitch you saw, I believe, that really kind of set the tone for how the game was going to go. So It's why we like having you at the top of the lineup. Somebody that can get on base. You do a great job drawing walks. You do a great job moving runners. Do a great job driving runners in. They're like, well, should we play her in the 3-hole? Well, there's always that school of thought. Do you put her in the 3-hole or not? And I think it's one of those right now where we just like you coming up as many times as possible. Yeah. So definitely a good start to the weekend. The weekend kind of got shuffled around 4, 5, 6 times. So we went up driving up Thursday night. We were going to go up Thursday morning, get ready for a game Thursday night. Then we talked about the snowman weather last Sunday against Georgia Tech, and it really kind of stayed throughout. We were all bundled up pretty good. It was cold in Huntsville. They had snow on the ground Thursday when we got to town. It allowed us to kind of have some fun team activities. We were able to go to Dave & Buster's and do some cool stuff there. Luckily, it was right beside our hotel. It was about a 225-yard walk to the Dave & Buster's from the hotel. So had some good times there with the Dave & Buster's stuff, and then really got the bats rolling Saturday morning. Came back in, had a game break, and then got them going again late with a nice comeback win against North Alabama Saturday night. So all in all, a pretty good start to the trip, and then kind of batten down the hatches, if you will, and stayed as warm as we possibly could for the remainder.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the Dave & Buster's piece, and it's always fun when we get to take the team outside of softball and kind of have a team activity like that, because I think it's a chance that you get to really see some personalities shine. Where did you spend most of your time? What game were you locked in on while you were there?
Well, I didn't really go because I had the test to study for, that student athlete life. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that, but I probably would be at the basketball. Yeah, honestly,
the basketball was busy.
Yeah,
that's where I stayed.
I was gonna say you had a little bit of a head-to-head there with Jesse at one point, and I looked over, and it didn't look like it was going super well for you, Mr. Coach.
It wasn't, but round 2, I got really hot in round 2. Yeah, I was like 17 straight free throws. I'm like, man, free throws are easy, right? They're free after all. Right. Just kidding. But, I think I had 114, which I thought was the career high for the day. No, Jamie Desport had 118. Wow. Once you get to 55, it starts giving you all these bonus points. And I was just racking them up. And, of course, it was one of those free games, so I didn't get any tickets for it. But some of our managers really got some cool tickets. I got some really neat gifts at the gift shop with the things that they won. I think Macy Semino had the draw of the day. She hit the big claw. You've seen Toy Story with the claw. She hit the big claw, and it had these massive triangles in there with like 5,000 points on each one. And she grabbed 500 points on each one. She had one claw that got 4 of these triangle pieces. It almost looks like something that you use on a pool table to like get the cues in order or get the pool balls in order. Anyway, she had a 2,000-point play there with the big claw. So that's probably the highlight of the ticket getting extravaganza.
I think my highlight of the day was watching Coach Ricketts do the virtual reality Star Wars game. She banned us from posting the video.
Video's epic.
Before I even got into Dave & Buster's, because my wife and I were coming in a little bit late, she had already texted me to tell me that if video of that went out on the team account, I would be fired. But it was a good time. Wow. It was fun to watch. And I think everybody just, like we said, kind of got to relax a little bit, have a good time, and then settle in for the weekend.
Yep.
So you mentioned a little bit already the La Tech game. After that, you go to Toyota Field.
Yep.
To play North Alabama. Really probably kind of the biggest of big league experiences that you've gotten to have so far playing softball. Just talk about what that facility was like, and as we kind of got in there, and it was a little bit of a maze as you're walking through the tunnels to figure out where to hit and get out to the field, and spending time in the clubhouse while we were waiting for that first game. Just talk about that experience at that facility.
Yeah, well, it's definitely cool to see like a baseball field turn into a softball field. Like you really realize the dimensions there, and then getting to see like the grandstands and the big old jumbotron in the back. Like it's just really an experience just in itself. And then like the clubhouse being right underneath that little tunnel, like you were mentioning, it's just awesome. Like it was cool to experience.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a lot of the Hoover Met. Baseball has the SEC tournament at the Hoover Met. It's where the Birmingham Barons played a long time ago, back when Michael Jordan was playing in the minor league system with the Chicago White Sox. He was there in Birmingham with the Barons. So I had a lot of good experiences at the SEC tournament in Hoover. And there's talks about maybe this being a thing for the SEC softball tournament moving forward here in Huntsville, which is now the biggest city in Alabama. It's recently overtaken Birmingham in terms of population. So really good area. area, the folks in Madison, the folks in Huntsville, they did a tremendous job of putting this thing on. And I thought the field played very well. Thought the dirt was really good. The fences, everybody's like, well, how about the backstop? There's all this room on a baseball field. They did a good job of actually moving the dirt back and getting home plate close to the backstop, get the dugouts closer to make a little more comparable to a normal field in terms of foul territory space. But I just thought the crew there did a tremendous job. If not for some inclement weather, if not for some snow and some really cold temps, you're probably having several thousand fans coming through the turnstiles there at Toyota Stadium. And it was really cool seeing all the club level suites. I know Morgan Stiles is from the area, and I think her high school softball team, she was playing high school softball a year ago, I think the whole team rented out one of the suites to watch her play. And so you're right, it's kind of that big league experience. With the clubhouse, the visitors clubhouse, all these amenities that you don't really get a whole lot at this level. I thought Huntsville and Madison area did a tremendous job putting this on, and I think there's a lot of momentum moving forward with this possibly being a site for the SEC tournament down the road.
Well, in that North Alabama game, you mentioned it was a comeback win again. But Sierra, lots of walks in that game. My notes, you reached in every plate appearance there. So we've talked a little bit coming into the show before we turned the red lights on there, just about your plate discipline and taking walks, and kind of what do you attribute that to? How did you get to the point where you kind of knew the strike zone as well as you do?
Well, I've been a leadoff hitter most of my life, so I pride myself on, getting on base, whether that's a walk, hit by pitch, single, double, whatever that is, just to set the table for my team. So through that and through the years of being a leadoff, it kind of you get the practice of knowing the strike zone, knowing what the umpire is going to call, especially if you get home first and then being center field, you get to see what they're calling, how wide it is. So by the first inning of that other game, you get to know okay, she's giving a ball off, 2 balls off. So it's the strike zone before you even go up.
Yeah. And then want to come back to the ending of that game because there was a really pretty relay from right field. And I know that's something that you, working directly with the outfielders, take a lot of pride in, Coach T. Brett. So can you just talk us through that play from Kiara to Morgan Stiles to Jesse Blaine at the plate to cut down the last out of the game?
Yeah, it starts with the play at the fence. It may seem redundant that you're working on balls that are bouncing off the wall and making sure that you're picking them up cleanly, but you'd be surprised how often outfielders can get sped up where they're trying to get it in and look to see where the cutoff is too quick. Next thing you know, they bobble the ball, and now you've lost any chance at a play whatsoever. So I thought Key did a good job. It was kind of a temporary fence. We talked about that a minute ago. So it really didn't ricochet very hard like it would probably on most college fences with the padding. It kind of hit and stuck. So Key did a good job of getting it. She grabbed it bare hand right out of the ground, turned and threw it a dart into Stiles. And then Stiles did a tremendous job handling that. It's kind of a little bit arm side. She moved her feet well to get it to the glove side and then she has a big arm, 70-mile-an-hour overhand, and she threw a BB to the plate. And with the rules the way that they are in terms of obstruction and those kinds of things at the plate, you really have to be careful with going into where a throw may be. But I thought Jesse did a tremendous job of allowing space, a direct path to the leading edge of home plate, did a good job letting the ball get deep. She caught it. She put it in a thimble, really. Stiles put the ball in a thimble for us. Caught catch tag, did a good job of that. And that's kind of how the game ended. So it ended on an ESPN top 10 type play. To salvage the 6-2 win. We got a big insurance run there the previous inning. You were a part of that. But I thought offensively we just did a good job when we got down 2-0 and then answered back immediately. And then we got the shutdown inning, which is something we talk about a lot. Josie had a huge shutdown inning in the circle for us, made some big plays behind us, had an error-free game there at that field. And, I thought really one of the tells, not to get off subject here, one of the telltale signs of that field was Nadia going hard into the third base dugout. And it may not show up on the stat sheet that that's a big-time play because the ball wound up falling in the dugout, but it's the effort that she showed on that play, selling out, running full speed into the padding. It banged her up a good bit. It hurt her a little bit the next morning. Then she was able to bounce back in the afternoon game. But I thought that kind of attention to detail, that kind of passion to want to go get the ball, it shows a lot and resonates in the locker room and in the dugout that, hey, every play matters. Right. And I think that kind of led into us putting up a big spot ourselves and taking a 5-2 lead and then ultimately a 6-2 lead. But, yeah, Stiles with a huge relay. Key did a great job getting it in quickly like we talked about. She had another really good throw the next day on Sunday afternoon to hold a potential sack fly situation. That girl was going from third, and Key threw a dart into the plate. She put the brakes on about halfway down and went back. So I think a couple big arms that we talked about. You've got a big arm in the outfield. I think you've got in the notes here, Brian, that's our third outfield assist already this year. I didn't realize we had that many, but it is something that we take a great deal of pride in, and it takes the whole unit. It takes the middle infielders on the relay, and it takes the catchers doing a good job at the plate too.
Yeah. And you talked about the Nadia play and the mentality. I think that's a great transition into kind of the next two notes on the script, because they're going to be questions about mentality and what that brings to you. We've talked a lot with Morgan last week about just the mental side of softball and how sometimes there are things outside of just the physical that impact the game. And you just talked about like knowing what pitch is coming, even that side, mental side. So the win against North Alabama, that ran the winning streak to 11 games. It's the longest winning streak we've had since the end of 2020, start of 2021. That was a school record 17 games there. I know that there's always kind of the debate on the coaching side, Bratton, of do we challenge ourselves early and play some of these tougher teams, or do we try to stack up some wins and build some confidence? This group has kind of been able to do a little bit of both, especially with that early weekend, opening weekend, the teams we saw there. But what does a quick start like that do for a team's mentality going into conference play and then eventually postseason?
Yeah, I think stacking wins early is huge for the mindset. You know, you're always, we said this all the time. I've referenced this before on the show and even on the show with Joel and Logan in the past. You know, we're on the road to find out. You don't really know what the year's identity yet or the team's identity yet until you actually get into the battles of competition. So that first weekend in Clearwater, we were definitely on the road to find out. We were going to learn something one way or the other about what our team's identity was going to be, what our mindset was going to be, what our ability was going to be to overcome adversity. Those are like things that you're looking for as a coach to try to figure out what's this team's mindset going to be, what's this team's identity going to be. And I think we found it right away. You talked about that mentality. Raylan Chafin set the tone really with the dog mentality against Texas Tech. We highlighted that a good bit the first weekend out. That was a heck of a battle between her and the reigning National Player of the Year and Nisha Kennedy. But it was good to see our team's resolve to come back. You had a big go-ahead RBI, or actually the third RBI in that game, in a battle that you and Kennedy have had a couple really good battles these last few games we played against her. So I thought that some of the things that doesn't get talked about enough in that, we talked about relays earlier, the one you had in the first inning. If we don't get that relay in on Lana Johnson's double to left to hold a really good Davis at third, then that game doesn't even go extra innings. And that's something that just kind of goes down on the scorebook as a double. But the attention to detail to get it in quick, hit Kylie Ormside. Kylie fired it into the plate, stopping that runner around in third. Pardon the pun on the Rounding Third podcast there. But those are little things that we're trying to figure out what's going to be our mentality. I thought our defense was stellar that game. I thought our defense was stellar the next game too. We had some big-time defensive plays this past weekend, and if we can defend and if we can pitch it, and if we can get timely hits, those are things that are going to set you up for success. And I thought we saw that first weekend out. We got big-time timely hits against Nebraska. You had a huge one in the 3-run double there. Had big-time timely hits, really like 4 doubles, I think, in the first inning against Penn State. Kind of got the ball rolling in that game. Another preseason top 25 ranked team that we got a win against. So I think you're right. Stacking the schedule the way that we did, it kind of has a little bit of both. It's got some strong contenders, and it's got some teams that maybe not be on paper quite as strong, although their records look pretty good so far 3 weeks into the year with some of the ones we played this past weekend too.
And as we kind of turn the page into that Sunday game, Miami, Ohio.
Yep.
It's an 11-7 win, but there's a point in that game where you go down 6-1.
Yep.
So that's Ricketts' 6th comeback victory when trailing by 5 or more. It's tied for the most by an active SEC head coach. We'll put an asterisk on that because Patty Gasso has been in her current position for so long. There are a few box scores we don't have to go back and check, but for what we know, it's tied for the most. As a leader of this team, when we talk about mentality, when you're sitting in a dugout and you're down 6-1 and you're coming off the field getting ready to go back up to hit, what is the message in that dugout? What are those conversations like?
Right. Well, we know it's going to take all of us to score 5 runs at least, and then 6 to go ahead. So it's about like staying together, picking each other up. If somebody doesn't get it done, then the next girl is going to do it. So I think it's about having each other's back, staying together, and just keeping the mindset of we still are going to win this game.
And you mentioned Morgan Stiles. She had a couple big quality at-bats in that game. What is the value in that productive out? when maybe it doesn't show up as a hit or it doesn't show up in the batting average? What is the teaching point there of having that quality at bat, making it take everyone?
Well, I think, especially in a game like that, when you're just trying to cut the lead in half, they got up to a quick 2-0 start in the first. We were able to come back and cut the lead in half. You scored that run to get us on the board. And we talk about the power of the shutdown inning, and we're always trying to get the shutdown inning on defense and with the pitchers. But being able to prevent that shutdown inning on the other team, it kind of works both ways. So they were almost out of the hook or off the hook in the first inning. We got a run back, and then they scored several to go up 6-1. And then, we had some quality at-bats. Styles, you mentioned, had one. You getting on again in the second inning. Here it is in the second inning. We're already back to the top of the order again. And Bernardini just kind of able to serve one up the middle, and it scored you. And it was kind of a gamble to send you there, but 1 out. But you're like, hey, if we can cut this to 6-3 now, all of a sudden it shows that we're the team back on the attack. And that was a good slide by you. All-American center fielder for Miami put a good throw in there. But you're rolling with your best. And you with our speed, we know it's high-end speed. We're going to roll the dice there and make them throw us out. You did a good job of beating that tag, and then it allowed the batter runner to get to second base too. And that's kind of what sets up. Now all of a sudden we get the sac fly at 6-4, and then that sets up Key Sales with the big 3-run homer. And all of a sudden you go from down 6-1, you're up 7-6. And you're feeling pretty good again. But to me, it starts with the aggressive base runner by you, getting that run in there to make it 6-3. The quality at bat by Bernardini and Styles, the two Morgans, really kind of turning it over there for us too. And those are huge. It may not be the game winner, the sac fly that cuts the lead in half. It may not be the C&I single that cuts the lead in half that it gets talked about enough. But those are key moments that keeps the pressure on them. It makes them go to the bullpen, and now they got to bring another arm in there. And we feel pretty good. If we can score 5 or 6 runs, we've hit on that number a lot. I think Coach Ricketts' winning percentage is somewhere around 780, give or take. Don't quote me on that, but it's a pretty high winning percentage when we score 5 or more runs. So to be able to put up a 5 spot in that inning, I think we actually was it 6 runs that inning?
7-run inning.
7-run innings, even better. We like to use bowling numbers from time to time. A 3 spot is a turkey, a 6 spot is a 6-pack. You get all 12 and it's a 301. And I say that because I never bowled a 300 and lost. That's a funny joke there. Nobody ever laughs when I tell that story. But anyway, that's my best bowling score is a 301. Anyway, we may cut that part out, but it's all right. Put that on the blooper reel. But you're right. Being able to stack those quality at-bats. We talk about 50% a lot. We want to be able to have on our process point sheet that we don't meet a whole lot after the game. We wait and do a lot of our stuff the next day when we've had a chance to dissect film and that sort of thing. But one of the things we do talk about post-game is our process points. And it's a sheet of paper that's got maybe 10 categories on it. We're trying to see how many of those categories of success we can have that leads to a win. And it may not be the hit. The hit doesn't necessarily lead to the win. It's the amount of quality at-bats we have. So the sac fly is a quality at-bat. Any RBI is the quality at-bat. A barrel, you can hit one hard right at a shortstop. Doesn't mean that you had a bad result at the plate. You didn't get credit for the hit, but we did what we wanted. We hit the ball hard, and that's all we can control. We got a pitch to swing at. We got off an A cut, and we can't control what happens once it leaves the bat there. And we had one of those the day before with you, just an atom ball. Had his chance to score, probably clear the bases, but it's an atom ball, and that happens sometimes. But you still get the quality at bat, and that's what we're trying to teach. We're trying to emphasize, hey, 50% or more quality at bats. When we do that, good things happen, and they certainly did on Sunday.
Yeah. And just one last note on Morgan, has moved to runner 52.6% of the time. So when she's getting up there, she is being productive with those at-bats. A little tight on time. I know you've got some classes to get to. Mr. Coach T-Brett has some scouting meetings to get to, but wanted to hit on a few off-the-field things for you before we get moving. So we've talked a little bit about the slapping, but what we haven't talked about is some of your kind of off-field habits. Very competitive. You and Zach have an ongoing rivalry on the ping pong table. The team has voted you as the best ping pong player, but I think Zach would continue to argue that he's still got you beat.
He's definitely better than me, unfortunately.
How have those battles gone recently?
We played yesterday, and he kicked my butt, so I just need to get back on the ping pong table and work it out. So,
have you beaten him yet when he is not using his left hand?
No. Unfortunately. It's coming, though. Don't worry.
I was going to say, there was one day that Sierra was very proud that she had almost beaten Zach. She had taken him to within 2 points.
Yes.
And then he decided to reveal to her that, unbeknownst to her, she hadn't noticed that he'd played the entire game left-handed.
That's how he tricks you. He's like, oh, that didn't count. I was with my left hand. That's how he gets you.
Also a big reader. and it's kind of taken over the team lately. I know.
Yes.
Well-read group of dogs here.
Very well-read group of dogs. In fact, such a well-read group of dogs that at Stanford last year, there was one point where Sierra forgot to get off the bus as we pulled into the parking lot because her nose was still in the book.
Yes.
It worked out. She was still locked in, hit a home run that day. But what's maybe your favorite thing you've read recently?
Oh, I'm reading, what am I reading right now? It's Frida McFadden, I think. I just read The Boyfriend, and now I'm reading The Housemaid, and it's like psychological thrillers, so they're pretty good.
I was going to say, I know there's kind of a series of books that between you and Coach Ricketts and Coach
Riley,
Marcy and
Morgan.
the entire team, it seems like y'all have a shared library and you just pass the
Yes,
book
we
around
do.
as you finish it.
Pretty much. Taylor is getting like really into it too, so she's kind of getting into the same realm as we are. So
Yeah. All right, Mr. Coach T-Brat. Well, it is that time. When you're rounding third, you are?
We're headed home. So one last note on the book things. A lot of times if we do a team trip to get dinner or go to the mall or something like that, you know, you do just that. You go to the Cheesecake Factory like a lot of us did, but several of the girls went to Books A Million. So this is a new development here. They took the road, there's a Books A Million. We're going to go to Books A Million and check out what they have there. But you're right. When you're rounding third, you're headed home, and we have a big weekend ahead of us. Starts tonight, really a big week. We've got 6 games starting tonight. UAB comes to town, the Blazers. Taylor Smart, first-year head coach there. We've known Taylor for a long time, back to her Troy days, does a tremendous job. So excited to welcome her and her group in. They'll be ready for the challenge this afternoon. We're excited for that game. 4 o'clock start for those in town that want to come check us out. And then we've got a big tournament here this weekend. So back home for the next 2 weekends, which will be huge for us, the friendly confines of News Park. We've got 5 games in 3 days rolling into town. New Mexico will be here for a doubleheader, Northwestern State for a doubleheader, and Alabama State coming to town too. So a big weekend of games coming up ahead.
Yeah, so start of an 11-game homestand. Going to be here for a while. We'll be here through the first week of conference play and then one more midweek after that before we hit the road. The fun fact of the day on the opponents coming to town: have not played New Mexico since 1997.
That's the year my sister graduated high school.
Yeah, so that's the 14th longest gap we've had in a series with a team that still has a D1 team. If you'll note, we also had one earlier last week with North Texas. That was our 11th longest.
Yep.
So bringing in some old familiar foes that we haven't seen in a while, welcoming them back to Starkville for the first time.
Absolutely. Excited to get out here. Much better weekend of weather ahead. So that's huge. You get some sunny days. You get some 70-degree days. It's going to be up to 78 today. So hopefully we'll keep the bats hot. We'll keep everything rolling, and looking forward to seeing you guys at News Park. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Rounding Third podcast. For Brian Ogden and Sierra Sacco, I'm Tyler Bratton. Hail State.
Hail State.
Hail State.